We are Forgotten Scotland. In this series of podcasts, we're going to be exploring places and people whose contributions to the national narrative has faded from our collective consciousness. People, places and stories that deserve to be remembered. I first came across this person when I was researching another Scot whose name everyone will recognise, Keir Hardie. No risk of that name fading from history. But this other Hardie, same period and with some association to Labour Party politics, occasionally popped up in musty research documents. Eventually I thought to myself, who is this Agnes Hardie? And piecing together the answer to that question took me on quite a journey. So, to start Agnes's story, I think we can justifiably use the phrase from humble origins. I'm on Edgefold Road in Springburn, and this wall is all that remains of Barnhill Poorhouse. Agnes is born here on the 6th of September 1874. Wee sister to Jeannie and second daughter to Margaret and John Pettigrew. As far as we can gather, Dad's an employee of the institution, and it's quite possible on-site accommodation was provided, which explains why Barnhill Poorhouse is listed as Agnes Pettigrew's place of birth. 1881 and things have changed for Agnes's family. I'm in Dunchatton Street, a few miles down the road in sunny Denniston. This, we think, is where number 22 would have stood, part of a row of blonde sandstone tenements. The Pettigrews are one of 8 families living here in single-end accommodation. Basically, a room and a kitchen with a shared outside toilet. Dad's working as a warehouseman in a shoe factory. Agnes has a new wee brother, Duncan, who's 3, and a 6-month-old sister, Mary. Agnes herself is 6 and listed on the 1881 census as a scholar. Most likely here at Alexander's Ladywell School, a short walk from her home. (1891). The Pettigrews are now living here at 265 Duke Street, a stone's throw from Dunchatton Street. Nowadays it's part of Lidl's car park. Agnes now has another wee brother, John, who's 9, and Dad is employed as a commercial clerk with shoe manufacturer Bain and Duckett. The older siblings are out of school and working. Jeannie, the eldest, is recorded as a notepaper packer. Duncan, now 13, is working as a messenger boy. Agnes is 16. And listed as a boot saleswoman. The family's also got a lodger, Charles Drummond, listed on the census as a journeyman slater. 8 of them. 5 adults and 3 wains crammed into yet another cramped flat, another outside toilet. 5 wages coming into this household. Elsewhere in this second city of the empire, Glasgow's commercial and industrial magnates continue to amass huge fortunes. Their kids don't leave school at 13. They don't have to take in lodgers to make ends meet. In 1891, Denniston is part of the Glasgow Camlachie constituency and represented by Hugh Watt, a rich Ayrshire businessman. What could someone like him know or care about the lives of people like Agnes and her family, who don't even have a vote?
We worked 80, 90 and 100 hours a week. I never had a half holiday or a Saturday afternoon off.
If you're overworked, badly paid and can't afford healthcare, remember no NHS back then, no one would blame you at the end of your 100-hour working week for just slumping into the bed you share with as many as 3 other people and counting your meagre blessings. Not Agnes. Union membership is growing all over the UK. Ordinary working people are discovering the tools and the confidence to start speaking up for themselves and their fellow workers. In her late teens, Agnes joins and, from all reports, becomes active in the National Union of Shop Assistants, Warehousemen and Clerks, known as NUSA. And in 1894, at the tender age of 20, she joins the newly formed Independent Labour Party. In 1901, I'm in Kirkcaldy in North Glasgow. Another area that would have been dense with single ends and outside toilets. Down here is where Stephen Street used to be, and number 32, where Agnes is living now. She's 27, still selling boots. Mum and Dad are gone from the census. There's no death certificates for either, so the exact dates of their deaths are unknown. Waves of respiratory disease were common in Glasgow back then, thriving in these overcrowded conditions. In 1901, average life expectancy in the city is 49 years of age. Both in their 50s and in work from 13 or even younger, John and Margaret Pettigrew have beaten the odds to live as long as they did. Crammed in here with Agnes are younger brother John and wee sister Mary, whose job is listed as a shirt cutter. Big sister Jeannie, her new husband, and their 2 wains, both under 5. As the new century gets underway, Agnes hits the ground running. 1906, she joins the Scottish Cooperative Women's Guild, part of a members-led organisation that will become a legend, supplying good quality food and clothing to generations of Glaswegians and introducing the divvy for all. Ask your granny. 1908. I'm on the corner of Wilson Street and Brunswick Street in Glasgow's Merchant City, the heart of what once was the garment district. And this used to be Bain and Duckett's shoe manufacturers, where Agnes has worked for over 2 decades selling boots, and for 8 of those years spreading the word, educating her fellow shop girls about the benefits of joining a union. And she's good at it. Around this time, 34-year-old Agnes, the activist, becomes an organiser for Newsa, the first woman to hold such a position. This is a paid gig, so bye-bye Bain and Duckett, bye-bye 20 years of other folks' feet. In her new job, Agnes is travelling all over Glasgow, all over Scotland. She's speaking at meetings on the shop floor and in canteens, talking to folk, advising them on their rights and helping to negotiate disputes with employers. And she moves house again. From Calcadens to here, a room and kitchen above this former warehouse at 35 Bell Street. She's loving her new job. She's using experience from that 20-year retail career. She's drawing on those soft negotiating skills a lot of women pick up as they navigate their way through life. She's good with people, all different kinds of people. 1909, Agnes Pettigrew becomes the first female member of Glasgow Trades Council. This is also a significant year for Agnes in a more intimate way. On her marriage certificate under occupation, she proudly states Organiser Shop Assistants Union. And the groom? Well, he's called George, and he's Keir Hardy's wee brother. On the 9th of December that same year, Agnes and George have a son, David Keir Hardy, named for his famous uncle. It's a home birth, and Agnes has moved again, with the Hardys now living in one of Maryhill's overcrowded tenements here in Garrioch Quadrant, northwest Glasgow. Like most women at the time, Agnes gives up her job when she marries, and as a passionate socialist married to another passionate socialist, continues spreading the word in the voluntary sector. 1910, Agnes is elected to Glasgow's school board, one of a handful of working class women to ever infiltrate an organisation that was very much the province of Lady Bountifuls back then. 1911, and we're no in Maryhill anymore, Dorothy. The Firs in leafy Clarkston on the south side of the River Clyde, and the Hardys are living here. David's 1 year old. With wee sister Mary, whose occupation is given on that year's census as housekeeper, maybe with some childcare duties thrown in. Definitely a step up for Agnes. Who can blame her for wanting an inside toilet and a bit of garden for wee David? Better housing paid for by good jobs with proper wages and decent working hours should be within everyone's grasp. And that's what Agnes keeps fighting for. But a bigger fight is looming. 1914. The outbreak of World War I throws Glasgow into chaos, with women, some of them very young, employed in non-protected occupations while the men are at war. Agnes's experience as an organiser, activist and now peace campaigner is more in demand than ever. War is always a boom time for the industrialists and factory owners. Agnes is right in there behind the scenes, advising, educating, fighting to make sure living and working conditions for those who keep the home fires burning and the big guns firing are fair and equitable. But negotiating directly with factory owners on a case-by-case basis can only get you so far. Fair working practices need to be enshrined in law. The ordinary women and men who supplied the munitions and their physical bodies to win this war need representation at Westminster. 1918. George stands as Labour Party candidate for Springburn. He comes second. While her husband licks his wounds, Agnes just gets on with it. She's already deeply involved with the Women's Labour League, bringing working class women's issues, housing, health and child welfare to the forefront of national politics. In 1918, she becomes women's organiser for the Labour Party in Scotland. Agnes also somehow manages to find time to write articles for the Scottish Cooperator, a publication describing itself as a monthly cooperative journal. Yeah, she's still on the shop floor, talking to folk where they work, but she's also paying her dues in print, discussing issues affecting working women, commenting on political events from a socialist and what we'd probably regard these days as a feminist perspective. No bad for a wee lassie who grew up in a single end and left school at 13, but that's exactly what's driving her. Agnes understands the daily struggles of the women in the tenements of Springburn and Denniston because she grew up among them. She's well acquainted with bad housing, bad working conditions, low wages, short life expectancy, and the everyday tragedy of infant mortality. Intimately acquainted. Because despite the relative comforts of leafy Clarkston, despite the benefit of two parents both earning a fairly good wage, sometime between 1911 and 1921, young David Keir Hardie dies. Records are thin. We don't know when, where, or from what. We couldn't even find a death certificate. All we do know for sure is that when George wins for Labour in 1922 and Agnes moves to London with the new MP for Springburn, it's just the two of them. If anyone watching this has any further detail about the circumstances of young David's death, please let us know in the comments section. From here on, details of Agnes's activities are scarce. We know she serves on the Public Assistance Committee of the London County Council from 1930 onwards. We also know she's forced to resign her paid position as Scottish Women's Organiser for Labour in the mid-1930s, apparently for criticising the leadership's rush to rearm and the treatment of its left-wing members. No much change there then, eh? Knuckles suitably wrapped. What now for Agnes? She's still a party member. That campaigner and activist with a skill set developed in the National Union of Shop Assistants and honed over decades is still there, along with a passion for the socialist cause. So we have a feeling she remains active in the London area at a grassroots level and very much behind the scenes. George holds the Springburn seat for Labour, with one wee interruption. From 1922 to 1937, But personal tragedy is looming on the horizon once more for Agnes. The Hardys are enjoying a well-deserved summer holiday in South Wales when, on July the 27th, 1937, George dies suddenly, aged 64, of a heart attack. Husband, soulmate, lover. They've been friends, socialists, equals, activists fighting side by side for over 30 years. The sitting MP for Springburn is dead. Labour needs a candidate who can hold this seat. Party executives look at Agnes. She's got the name recognition, the respect of the trades union movement, impeccable socialist and pacifist credentials. And this daughter of working class Glasgow, born in Barnhill Poorhouse, also has deep roots in the community. When she's first asked, Agnes turns it down, but eventually she reluctantly agrees. She's never sought the limelight. She's 63 years old. With only 5 weeks to campaign, Agnes heads home to Springburn. How does she spend those brief 5 weeks? Does she do a bit of door knocking? Maybe visit wee David's grave, wherever he's buried? Does she think about George? She's still grieving, remember? Or is she gathering her thoughts for her eve of poll speech? Monday the 6th of September 1937, the day before the by-election, and Agnes's 64th birthday. I'm on the corner of Keppoch Hill Road and Millerbank Street in Springburn. That racket you can hear behind me is traffic on the A703 expressway, the great scar of a road that cuts northeast Glasgow in half. It's not here 80 odd years ago. Those new flats aren't here either. What is here is Springburn's pride and joy, its magnificent public halls, and this is where Agnes addresses the people of the area at a reportedly 900 strong eve of poll rally. These are her folk, and she wants to represent this heavily industrial constituency. She stresses her connections to the area and her credentials as a tireless advocate with the National Union of Shop Workers. Agnes also mentions her Tory opponent, Colonel McInnes Shaw, currently chairman of Springbank Foundry, and no short of a bob or two.
Do not send a man who knows nothing of your problems. Send someone who has lived among you and knows what life means to the working class.
She ends her speech with a direct appeal.
I would ask the women to think of the thousands of homes where there is a constant struggle to make ends meet.
On Tuesday, the 7th of September 1937, Agnes is elected as the Labour Member of Parliament for Springburn, with 62.6% of votes, Glasgow's first female MP. And thanks to Hansard, we know she's right in there, speaking up for and fighting to improve the lives of ordinary working people. Here's Agnes on the Holiday Pay Act, just 2 months after taking her seat on the 12th of November 1937. And she's on fire.
I do not know how honourable members opposite, who have 3 months holiday with pay, many of them with incomes of their own and can go on holiday with their wives and children, feel when they know that masses of the people are suffering because they cannot have a holiday. I appeal to the House to pass the second reading of this bill and not to obstruct it as they did last time, but to see that it passes so that they will have done something to justify their existence.
The Holidays with Pay Act is passed the following year, and it's why we have our paid annual leave 80 odd years later. All through World War II, Agnes calls out inequality wherever she finds it. Here's the Honourable Member for Springburn locking horns with the Minister for Pensions on the 1st of May 1941 in a debate on the proposed Personal Injuries Act.
A good proportion of our women are taking up dangerous occupations, so do not tell me that a nurse looking after patients at the risk of her life is to get compensation at a lower scale if she is injured than a man who may be blowing up while playing darts in a public house.
So much great stuff, and it's all in Hansard, so we recommend you go and have a read at the end of this podcast. But to whet your appetite, a couple of our favourites. Here's what Agnes has to say on the conscription of women into the war effort.
Some members on the benches opposite say, "You ask for equality, therefore women as well as men should be prepared to take part in war." That seems to me a funny argument, because we don't have equality. We have no equality in wages, no equality in the opening up of various services. As a matter of fact, women have never had to fight to get into dangerous and difficult jobs. We have had to fight to get into the easy, well-paid jobs.
She even takes a swipe at fellow trades unionist Ernest Bevan.
I trusted that the Minister of Labour and National Service would have looked after the interests of women. But I'm no the first woman who has trusted a man and been disappointed.
1945, the war's over. A general election is called. With the Labour Party surging towards its historic landslide victory under Clement Attlee, Agnes decides to stand down. She's 71. She's served for 8 tumultuous years. She's more than done her duty. Agnes dies 6 years later on March the 24th, 1951, at her home in Willesden, 6 months short of her 76th birthday. The cause of death is given as heart failure. A funeral service is held at Golders Green Crematorium on Thursday the 29th of March at 3 p.m. She'll maybe be glad she doesn't live to see a Conservative government back at Westminster in October that same year, despite Labour winning the popular vote. But she does witness the party she stood for and the principles she fought for all her life create an institution that remains the envy of the world, our NHS. And what a life it was. Agnes's story reminds us political impact isn't always measured in headlines or cabinet positions. It's measured in the difference you make, the lives you touch and change for the better. The lives of ordinary people like you and me. Say her name, Agnes Hardy, Springburn's forgotten working class hero. Thanks for watching. If you have a story about a historical figure you'd like us to cover, let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Forgotten Scotland histories. See you later.